President Trump tweeting just 17 minutes ago about Brian Ross and the implications. He tweeted this. People who lost money when the stock market went down 350 points based on the false and dishonest reporting of Brian Ross of ABC News, he has been suspended, should consider hiring a lawyer and suing ABC for the damages this bad reporting has caused many millions of dollars.
This is why he does not give up his Twitter feed.
Well, I bet
they tell him to put it away, and he doesn't, because this is the kind of power he has. Maybe
Absolutely.
he'll get some lawsuits.
Yeah, go.
We'll bring in Michelle Malkin now, host of Michelle Malkin Investigates on CRTV. So, Michelle, I mean, there's been a lot of criticism, and rightfully so, of fake news coming from Brian Ross about the implications of the bombshell report. They're caught with collusion. President's saying, hey, those actions have consequences. The market went down 350 points. Maybe they should sue. What do you think?
I think he's absolutely right. President Trump is making a very salient point that fake news hits people in the pocketbook. And I think he's half in jest here, but there is a serious point. And if there were people who were going to file a suit, they should file suit not only against the news division of ABC, but also the entertainment division, because Joy Behar's singular crowing about this fake news was probably responsible for a huge portion of those losses.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. Go ahead, Ed.
No, and I wonder also, because we've been talking about not just the ramifications of the false report from Brian Ross, which ABC is now trying to take responsibility for, but the fact that it's breaking overnight that an FBI agent has been pulled from the Mueller probe because of these texts he sent that are anti-Trump and pro-Clinton. And it turns out, well, wait a second, where was he at the FBI before? He was one of James Comey's cronies and sat in for the interview with Hillary Clinton, the interview that you'll remember 2 or 3 months before James Comey was writing the statement exonerating her before they interviewed her.
Yeah, it really stinks, and I'm glad that information is coming out, and it's busting up all of the narratives. And again, it is reinforcing President Trump's point that so much of this fake narrative about Russian conspiracies is deflection, and in fact, it may even be psychological projection, because it seems as though the conspiracies are within the deep state to try and set up Trump and perpetuate all of these lies. I do have to say also about Brian Ross that over the course of his career, he has been responsible for many journalistic errors and examples of malpractice. And curiously, every single one of these errors always errs on the side of attacking conservatives and undermining Republicans. Why is that? And why are there so many double standards in the way that ABC or NBC or CBS get away with these acts of malpractice and political agendas time and time again? A 30-day suspension, that's a joke. You know what I call that? Holiday break.
Well, listen, Michelle, we know you've been following the Kate Steinle case and the very outrageous verdict there. I know I've been talking to so many friends of mine. I live in Middle America. They're outraged. Tell me if you think that this verdict will actually have an impact on the whole issue of sanctuary cities, because we have a president who for the first time is bringing up the topic of sanctuary cities, and we have this outrageous example in this verdict.
Well, Rachel, I do have more hope than I have had in the last 25 years that I've covered these issues, that there will be lasting change. But it really has to come from all sides, and it can't just come from Washington. There needs to be a grassroots revolt within these cities, these so-called sanctuary cities that I call outlaw cities. And the chances that there will be such a revolt in an open borders mecca like San Francisco are low. I am really curious about whether jurors are going to speak out, because I want to know what was in their mindset. We know for a fact that the court did not allow in that trial any information about all of the deportations. That might have had a huge impact on their thinking about the case. And the other thing, too, is this is a systemic problem. It's not just the trial court level where we have issues. It's the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. It's all of these liberal federal judges in all of these liberal sanctuary cities that are granting rights to illegal aliens that American citizens of illegal alien crime do not have. It's outrageous.
Is that a fair question to ask? Would a U.S. citizen been given the same set of deferential treatment as was given to a 5-time deported illegal in this case?
Oh, of course it's the right question to ask. You know, I've followed so many cases where families who are the heirs and the survivors of illegal alien crime victims who have died have tried to go to court to sue, to hold government officials criminally and civilly liable. This happened in Houston when Houston Police Department officer Rodney Johnson was killed by an illegal alien in that sanctuary city, and his widow was denied something called standing. She wasn't even allowed to bring her civil suit into court. How is this possible? We live in this bizarro land where we're conferring more legal rights to illegal aliens and foreigners. How is it that these foreigners outside this country are stymieing President Trump from enforcing visas and policies and extreme vetting? Only in America.
Yeah, and you talk about narratives. There's a narrative out there when every time ICE goes in on a deportation, there are many in the media, not all, but many will say it's ICE that's overstepping, that they're trampling on rights somehow. And there's another narrative, by the way, you can weigh in on that, but another narrative in Washington as we look at what happens in the aftermath of the Steinle verdict, which is that there's been a narrative that the Republicans have a weak hand going into the end of the year negotiations over DACA, for example, and that somehow the Democrats have a strong hand, and they're going to be able to jam DACA through, codify it by law, and there's nothing the Republicans can do. Does the Steinle case change it at all, where maybe Republicans get a spine and say, look, if we're going to do DACA, if we're going to keep the children of illegals in this country, and you're going to work through that, there's also going to be some tough border control?
Yeah, well, let me talk about noxious open borders narratives. It's Nancy Pelosi who a couple of years ago was attacking ICE agents, and she used the word, quote, un-American to talk about their commitment to enforcing the rule of law. Unbelievable. I'll tell you what's even more unbelievable, and this is relevant to your question about the politics in the Beltway. The fact is that we have open borders Republicans who are doing the bidding of big business, who have an interest in cheap labor and undermining our immigration laws. And they are the ones who have been colluding with the radical identity politics ideologues of the left. We would not have open borders if it wasn't for this bipartisan collusion. And if you look at the people who are supporting this DACA move, it's not just radicals like Luis Gutierrez, who is now planning a run for president. It's also people like his good friend, Paul Ryan.
You know what? We finally found collusion.
There it is.
There we go. That's right. We found the conspiracy.
And you know what? Your larger point goes with what the president talks about. Either you have a sovereign country with real citizens where citizenship matters, or it's all out the window. And that's what the left has done.
And where
that's
there's
right.
rule of law.
Yeah.
As I say, we've turned into a sanctuary nation, and we need to take this country back. That's why President Trump was elected.
Michelle Malkin, thanks for joining.